Thank you all for joining us. I just want to start out by introducing myself. I'm Heather Spidell. I live in Nova Scotia. I have two parents for whom I am primary caregiver, and I also had a mother and a father-in-law in nursing home care. So Susan's book, Dying for Attention, a graphic memoir of a life in a nursing home, has resonated with me, and it also made me feel a little bit more okay and not quite so alone with my journey. And I hope it does the same for you. So I'll start off by just saying welcome to the launch of Dying for Attention. This graphic novel, which offers an unflinching look at how our society cares for elders, is an important call to action. It also opens the door for further thought and reading about other cultures, including Indigenous cultures, care for the elders, and what we can learn from them. At Conundrum Press, we're grateful for life and work in Mi'kma'ki, and we're honored to be able to learn from their stories. We are all treaty people. So Susan, you mentioned in that in the video, you said, I want to help, so I'll write a book. What do you hope your book will do to make a difference for older persons, for seniors, and for the system that challenged you and your mom?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a rather complicated one. When after Mom died and I was out of the system, I was still kind of in shock. I was so surprised at how efficiency in the system kind of knocked out compassion. They seemed to compete, and the loser was compassion. And it wasn't anyone's it wasn't anyone nursing home's fault. It certainly wasn't the care workers' fault. They're terribly understaffed, but it was almost, this is how we are as a society, and this is how we treat our elders. And we are happy to ignore them and the conditions they live under. So I didn't have any illusions that I'm going to change things with this little book, but I felt I could be some small part of it. What's changed things now is, of course, the COVID experience in long-term care, which just highlighted everything, amplified everything I saw. But because it was a viral disease, all those gaps and holes and lacks that I saw were simply caused death. They were horrific. So I'm in that way. COVID had an upside. That's difficult to say, but I hope this book will be a small contribution to the conversation I think we need to have as a society, as we are all aging. And I hope that anyone who's going through this won't feel so alone and, won't blame themselves for feeling inadequate, because as a family member, you'll never do enough. Yeah.
Thank you for that. You talked about, I know that you spent time sketching and drawing at St. Vincent's, where your mother was, where she lived. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, sorry.
Right.
No, my mother lived at another
That's right. Sorry, I knew that. You spent time sketching at St. Vincent's.
St. Vincent's brought me into their fold. They found me, and I was happy to join them.
That's right. So what did you observe and learn from the people you were sketching?
Oh, well, I think, I started sketching people in Mom's nursing home. So like many people, when I first entered a nursing home, I didn't have much experience with disabled people or people who weren't fully able. And I found it a very disconcerting and frightening experience. And in fact, as I say in my book, my instinct was to think, well, Mom's okay there. I just won't come very often, And I think actually that's what many families do. But I could see Mom was suffering there, so I couldn't leave her. I couldn't leave her there. So I visited her as much as I possibly could, and in the course of that, diminished my fear and my being off put by getting to know her table mates, by getting to know the people who are, that so many people are just wheeled up to the reception area. And I feel for the receptionist because she has to do a job and also be the human contact for so many residents. And then they're just parked and left there. So I began to acknowledge them as I entered the home and learn their names and try and remember them and try and learn something about them so I could talk to them a little bit on my way to mom's room. And it seemed to have a huge impact, just that little bit of consideration and getting to know them. They're still, of course, why would this be a surprise? The elderly and the frail and the disabled have personalities and they have opinions and they're people, my God. And they're just as deserving of love and respect and dignity as any of us. So, and I guess that contrast between seeing that and knowing that and learning about that, and then how we as a society are so ageist. This is wrong. I'll write a book.
I'll write a book. You'll write a book. Amazing. One of the things that you shared with me was, and you just talked about it, was this whole idea of you never want anyone to feel as lonely as you did. And you hope that perhaps the book can be validating for people or to not feel quite so alone. Tell us about that loneliness. Why did it feel that way?
Well, I think this speaks to the way caregiving is disregarded in our societies or diminished. The art of caregiving, the skill of caregiving is not valued and is not appreciated and is not understood. And what I found is the emotional toll that caregiving, and I couldn't care for mom the way the care workers were, I couldn't provide that high level of, physical care that she required. But I could and did offer all the emotional care that I possibly could, which is part of caregiving. Caregiving is so much more than clinical hands-on care to support the body. It's heart, and it's got to be heart, and heart needs to be acknowledged. And so the emotional care, the emotional labor, if you will, that I was giving to mom was exhausting. It really, it was rewarding. There's no question. Emotional care is so fulfilling. And I was just listening to a podcast on happiness, and this person was saying, when we're stressed and we go to this so-called self-care, and she was saying, no, self-care doesn't make us happy. Caring for others makes us happy. So don't go out and get yourself a massage. Give a gift certificate for a massage to someone else, and that's what will make you happy. So that's a little aside, but so yeah, so anyone looking after caregiving someone with a high level of care, whether it's emotional or physical, and hopefully it will be both, need support, and they need to take care of themselves, but there should be some recognition of what a valuable and important role this is in society, not just in healthcare.
Thank you for that. You and I, and probably a lot of people joining us this evening, have had some lively discussions about the language that we use. And one of the things we've talked about is, and you are kind of hoping will change, is that we don't talk about nursing home beds, we talk about people. Tell me a little bit about that.
And this, I guess, comes from my experience in government, is that what the lens that government looks through almost exclusively is the lens of funding, which of course is very, very important, and particularly in a province like Nova Scotia, which is a have-not province. So the term nursing home beds, as you know, Heather, is a funding term. it encompasses the number of staff and the least number of staff that each person in a bed requires, as well as the cost of their food and any technology that's required to support them. So that a nursing home bed is a financial unit. But that's not who are in nursing homes. There are people in nursing homes. So that language really diminishes the experience of people in nursing homes. And so often it's tossed around that nursing homes are people's homes. Well, yes, it's become their homes, but it doesn't seem like many officials and governing bodies are looking at it really genuinely as a place that people can call home. Well, for example, my mother, because of there's so many staff changes, my mother, there was never one person that I could go to who had experience with mom, and so that we could talk with some knowledge, some common knowledge of who mom was. So, because, every time I had to talk to a staff member, I had to start at the beginning, and they didn't have time for a lot of background information on mom. But how can it be your home if there's no one person there who knows and understands you? It's sure they've got your charts and they spend no end of time looking at your charts and did you have a bowel movement today? That's all recorded, and your drugs and everything. But who they are, that's very much a low priority. And that bothered me.
So you wrote a book.
I wrote a book.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Graphic memoirs are rare in this country. I think the kind that you've written. If you look at some of the lists you're starting to appear on, which is great. You're on CBC's One to Watch, Atlantic Books, and so congratulations. And I'm sure it's early days, so I'm sure there will be more to come. But the whole concept of a graphic memoir, like, how do you start that? Like, what do you do?
I had no idea. So this this is my message. If you are someone who wants to start something but have no idea, do not let that deter you, because it really was one step in front of the other, lots of mistakes, lots of putting my foot in my mouth, and yeah, there were lots of opportunities where I could have quit and said that, well, that's no fun. This is no fun, but I had an attitude of, well, until I'm stopped, like until I really am stopped, I'm not going to stop. And all my workarounds and explorations seemed to work, and I got to take the next step. So I just kept taking the next step.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think the reason I wanted to draw was I've always drawn, and I was tired of writing to communicate. And as a communicator, I don't know if you share this, Heather, but I just came to think no one reads anything anymore. So, writing as a form of communication is less and less effective. So I thought, well, maybe I can try and tell this story by drawing it. Maybe I'd love to read graphic memoirs and graphic novels. So
It's quite a feat, and it's quite a transformation you've made from being a government communicator to a graphic illustrator storyteller, which is amazing. Was it cathartic for you going through this?
Yeah, really right up, and it was very painful to write, and right up indeed to the last chapter, really, I didn't feel a weight lifted until I sent it all to Colleen for corrections and digitizing and all the good stuff that I have no capacity for. Anyway, and even then it took time, and all this, I did this. I was saw a few therapists along the way, as you'll read in the book. Yeah, it's very vulnerable. I had to look at myself in a very honest way, accept that. So to be brave.
So how does it feel now?
Now it feels good. It just feels normal now, which I guess is a good thing because, you know, I feel like, okay, I said what I needed to say and I can die now. No,
Yeah,
I don't
well,
want to die. I don't
maybe
want to
not
die.
like that soon.
No, no.
Yeah,
But there's some chunk of life's work that I've completed. Yeah.
I think you're getting started. You're just getting
Oh,
started, my
really?
dear.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of work. I don't know. Oh.